The Satanic Panic of the 1980s were so bad that Tom Hanks had to star in an anti D&D movie to convince you kiddos out there to not roll dice with your friends and use your imagination. And I'm not joking, that is one of his first credited acting roles, if I'm not mistaken. But with all that being said, imagine that movie is coming out at the same time as you're growing up, and you're the son of a pastor. That's the experience of my friend life, and I had to ask him what that movie was like being released as he was first getting into Dungeons and Dragons.
The D&D was kind of,
You're pushing it.
yeah. It wasn't in the hood, and then you mentioned the that made for television movie by
Mm-hmm.
Tom Hanks that
Yeah.
came out, and my father was a pastor.
Yeah.
All right, but they did it. They weren't like that brand of Christianity. They were just like, listen, if this boy likes throwing some funny looking dice and telling stories, let him do it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of outside looking in, there was a big that satanic panic was real for a little while. There was an
Yeah.
outside looking in, and once it was connection in some people's minds was made between you know quote unquote the occult and D&D. That's more so was my battle with my community,
Mm-hmm.
versus that other community. So it was real interesting for a little while. I kind of kept it under wraps, you
Yeah.
know. But then I also what the great thing that happened is that D&D turned out not to be the only game in town at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the beginning of the other TTRPGs coming out and stuff. And so it was it was easier to play, let's say, like a post-apocalyptic gamma world or like a superhero
Yeah.
champions role-playing game and not get the same feedback.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't
Not the same
dissuade me from
stigma
D&D.
related.
Right.
Yeah.
I played D&D, don't get me wrong, but it just was, that just wasn't the,
It had
the
to be on
front
the
door.
low.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, on the low, talk about devils and demons and stuff.
Which is so
Yeah,
funny because you're the one beating them when
exactly.
you play
Listen,
D&D.
listen. I was a serial cleric. Okay, I
There you
was,
go.
and I think that also had a lot to do with my upbringing, right? I
Yeah.
like get to heal, and I get to cast out demons in the name of, like,
Name of the Lord
okay,
that I serve. Exactly.
yeah. So like all that, dag. Now I'm thinking about it. I really did play clerics, and it really does probably have a lot to do with my dang upbringing. But
Yeah.
yeah,